This one is from CNN, and so like the basic high level stuff that has happened so far since the last time, since the last time I did the news for you guys was, we were apparently, Trump was going to do strikes on Iran, but then, he came out with the classic Trump line of they have completely capitulated. They are fully on board with everything, and we are going to make a deal. So because of that, I am not going to do the strikes. Now, he's done this plenty of times before. I said I don't know. I don't know if he's going to do the strikes or not, or if he's going to continue doing strikes or not. Really not sure. So since then, there's been some information, and he's also said that they're going to sign a deal really soon or something, right? I'm still highly skeptical of that. I don't think it's going to happen. However, we're going to learn more about it today. Maybe I'll change my opinion, but in general, I think that, the two sides are just two on isometrically different like wavelengths. Like Iran wants stuff that would require America to take a big fat L, and America so far does not seem willing to do so. And maybe it'll change. Eventually it has to change, right? Eventually America will have to agree to Iran's demands. So it's really just a matter of, do we think this is the time? So yeah, and then also I think Iran has leaked some, or not leaked, but like reported on some of the terms of the deal. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to, hopefully they'll go into it as a part of this video. And Trump is now complaining that it's all lies. And if you've been watching this story for a while, you will be very familiar with this exact set of things that have happened. It's always this is almost always what happens. What happens is Trump finds some sort of some sort of thing that he can maybe potentially agree to, like individually. He's like, okay, maybe I can spin this as a win and we can finally get out of here. And then Iran comes out and says, here's what we're agreeing to. It's the same thing over and over again, the same 10-point memorandum of understanding that they gave at the very beginning. And then America says, that's not what's actually in it. That's not what's actually in it. And then depending on how serious it is and how close it is, all of the Zionists and all of the, neocons come out of the woodwork to all complain on Fox News about exactly to try to complain that Trump looks weak, that this is a bad deal, he shouldn't take it. And then Trump usually ends up going along with the neocons and the Zionists and not actually, agreeing to the deal. So that's kind of the history of how this has gone in the past, and kind of what I'm expecting to happen as well this time. But who knows? Maybe this will be the time. Like I said, the deal America has to accept a deal at some point. America can't do this forever. So it costs too much money. It's too unpopular. The oil supplies are getting critically low. And I always thought between June and September is probably when. Well, I originally thought June, but apparently the minimum operational capacity of our oil tank reserves and stuff, they will get down to terminally critically low in September. So I'm guessing sometime between now and then is when maybe we will get some sort of actual deal. So anyway, let's go ahead and watch this video from CNN. Hopefully they'll give us some more insight. I got a whole bunch of other stuff pulled up on the side that I'll try to interject with some more information and details as we go. And yeah, let's just see what's going on. We got Wolf Blitzer here to guide us through.
There was a deal. President Trump is now lashing out at Iran. In a Truth Social post that appeared just a few moments ago, he called Tehran, and I'm quoting him now, dishonorable for what he's calling inaccurate descriptions of a proposed agreement. He also said they better get their act together and they better do so fast. Let's go to CNN's Kristen Holmes over at the White House. Kristen, what else is the president saying this morning? It's all very dramatic.
Yeah, and Wolf, we're going to get to what he's saying in a second, but I do want to explain how we got here and what it is that he is referring to, because we had gotten a readout of this memorandum of understanding from a diplomat who had been briefed on what was in this document, and some of the key points were this: that it would be a 60-day ceasefire that would include everything, Lebanon included.
Including Lebanon and including Gaza, I believe. I think they've expanded it now to include Gaza as well as Lebanon.
The Strait of Hormuz would be opened immediately, and that pre-war levels of traffic would begin again within 30 days, that the U.S. blockade of ports and some Iranian sanctions would all open up as part of this deal, and that it satisfies all the U.S. requirements on the nuclear issue. So that is
Okay, so I mean that's basically in line with what they originally signed on for the memorandum of understanding. The other thing I think was reparations. That doesn't seem to be, at least in this indicator here, but maybe they'll talk a little bit more, or maybe there's like a second page to this, Chiron. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna let it go a little bit further, and we'll see. And then also there was removing U.S. bases from the region as well, I believe. Oh, and the tolling system or whatever. I think that those were the main other things, but it doesn't mention anything on tolling, so I would assume that that could also be a part of it, and maybe the tolling system is a part of the reparations process. I think the last thing that they had asked for was removal of American troops from the region, which maybe this doesn't seem to mention it, at least on this Chiron either.
Is what we had been reporting. Then we had Iran come out, state media, and give their version of the deal, which looks significantly different. And there are a couple of points.
Oh, I thought that was the Iran one. Okay, well, let's see what Iran says
In there that are likely to make President Trump angry. One of them, they would not commit to ceding control over the Strait of Hormuz. And the other is that frozen funds, these frozen assets that have been a point of contention for President Trump. They say, Iranian state media, and of course, keep in mind the source here, that the agreement would demand the release of $24 billion in those frozen funds.
Yeah, you have to understand, Iran definitely needs, or not needs, but definitely wants that, because specifically the release of the $24 billion of Iran's frozen funds. That's because America has hit, like in the original JCPOA, I think that was when it happened. America had promised to release like a significant portion of Iran's frozen funds, which, by the way, they are illegally frozen. You are not allowed to unilaterally impose sanctions under international law without going through the UN. So I believe that if I remember correctly, there was no actual UN agreement for America to do these. And basically, America had agreed to unfreeze all of this stuff as a part of the deal, and then decided not to do it afterwards. So America has this long history of being untrustworthy. And that's even before Donald Trump, the most untrustworthy president of all time, is now the person doing the negotiation. So I think that at the very least they want this. I had heard 12 billion before. I guess they've upped it to 24 billion of Iran's frozen funds released. I would also say that they're probably expecting that America is not going to go through with any of the other stuff I would say that they would be highly skeptical that America is actually going to release any more than what is initially released in order to get this to a conclusion. I would also probably guess that they're not even I would also probably guess that they're not even expecting America to hold up its end of the bargain when it comes to sanctions relief either, if I had to guess. So because in all honesty, America probably won't as soon as they're outside of this conflict. But okay, that's some good. That's basically exactly what I just said. What I thought that they were expecting that wasn't being explicitly said on that first Chiron. So this also seems like one of those things where they're trying. America is just leaving out certain aspects in order to make the sell to the public that it's not a that it's not some sort of bad deal for America, which is a classic Trump move. He's just trying to find a way to spin victory.
So now you have President Trump reacting to this, essentially saying that the terms that Iran leaked to the fake news media have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak, pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. And with them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith.
Their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait Yeah, well, Iran has been like routinely targeting ships now because they said that the strait is completely closed again. So, they better get their act together fast. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me go ahead and see. Sorry, I had another one that I wanted to. That's not it. Where was it? Oh my gosh, I lost the. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, I had something up. Okay, here's this is from Iran Observer. I'm not actually that sure about this particular channel. It's one I found recently. I tried to go find this on Mer News, where they got this information. I couldn't find it, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But this is what they're saying. They want a permanent and immediate cessation of war on all fronts, including Lebanon. By all fronts, I assume they also mean Gaza. But yeah, they're specifically calling out Lebanon because, that's the one that Israel is currently the most focused on, and so the one that they want to, make very obvious, I think, in the wording. And then America's commitment to non-interference in Iran's internal affairs, complete lifting of the naval blockade. That was what they had mentioned, that part in what we just saw from CNN. America's commitment to withdrawing its forces from around Iran. That was what I talked about, removing American military service members from around the region and American bases from around the region. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz with Iranian arrangements. That's Iran continuing with its fee system. Suspension of oil and gas sanctions on the sale of oil and full access for Iran to its financial resources. So completely lifting all of the frozen assets or the freezes on the assets and undoing all of the sanctioning of their oil. The United States and its allies to present a reconstruction plan for Iran worth at least $300 billion. That's kind of what I was talking about in terms of reparations. 60 days of negotiations to reach a final deal regarding the nuclear file. Release of $24 billion in blocked Iranian funds during the 60-day with immediate access to half of the funds. Okay, that must be where I heard the $12 billion, is that they want immediate access to 12, but 24 to be completely released by the end of the 60-day. Establishing a monitoring mechanism to implement the agreement. The final agreement will be approved by a UN Security Council resolution. So, that's according to this, that's coming from Mer News, which is like the IRGC, newspaper essentially. And speaking of Mer News, this one is from 1:16 p.m. today, so a couple hours ago. But it says, this is from Mer News. Iran says proposed deal not finalized amid U.S. backtracking. Tehran says it remains steadfast on its principled red lines as authorities review a proposed understanding, firmly rejecting speculation. A final deal has been reached despite Washington backtracking on recent military threats. Following claims made by U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday about an imminent deal between Tehran and Washington, an informed source told Tasnim news agency that the text of the understanding has not been approved up to this moment. Okay. So I guess so it hasn't been fully approved by Iran. I have seen Araghchi, the foreign minister, has been out saying that they're close, which is like a sign, right? It is a sign. Araghchi does not speak for the entire government, though, and there have been historical during this conflict, there have been circumstances where Araghchi has gone out and spoken a little out of turn, and he said stuff that the IRGC command structure did not agree with. And then had to backtrack, right? So we'll take it with a grain of salt, but it usually means that it's like on the way probably to some sort of agreement, but it's going to take, the hardliners getting on board. And, we'll see if that happens. But I would say that if all of those things that they mentioned in wherever that last one I had open was, whatever. I can't find it again. I keep losing stuff now. I'm trying this new tab system, so it's a little bit off. But if all of that's in there, then I think the IRGC will likely agree to it. So where was I? Meanwhile, Foreign Minister spokesperson Esmail Bagay confirmed that Major sections of a potential understanding are close to completion. However, he rejected media speculations regarding a finalized agreement. Textually, the text has almost been finalized in its major parts. The problem is that the contradictory positions of the United States have always caused turbulence and disruption in this process, for sure. A lot of times, America will tentatively agree to Iran's positions on paper, and then they will go out and say the exact opposite. Trump will say the exact opposite. It's part of trying to spin it, but also he just straight up lies, which obviously then makes it hard for Iran to actually trust what America is agreeing to. According to Tasnim, Washington recently attempted to alter the 14-point text proposed by Iran. However, American military and diplomatic pressure failed to force any concessions. Okay. The report said the U.S. has now announced through a Qatari mediator that there is no need for America's recent amendments. Iran entirely rejected the new changes after Trump tried to shift Tehran's positions through both military threats and Qatari mediation. Any proposed text still requires review and finalization by relevant Iranian institutions. Until then, all other news and speculations are invalid, noted Tasnim. The diplomatic retreat follows a sudden reversal by the U.S. president hours after threatening to strike, yada, yada, yada. That was all from yesterday. Based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States, canceled the scheduled strikes. Yeah, we already went over that yesterday. He alleged that final points were approved by all involved parties, though he stressed that the illegal U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports would remain in place. Iranian officials swiftly dismissed the notion of surrender, emphasizing that Tehran will determine the terms of a resolution. Let's see. Mohammed Makbar, advisor to the Islamic Revolution leader, told CNN that the war will continue until Washington respects Tehran's interests. If they respect Iran's interests and act accordingly, the war will end. Otherwise, it will continue. He warned that Trump is mistaken if he believes he can continue to test Iran's military capability, stressing that Tehran will not back down and not step back. Bagay echoed this resolve, stating that Iran has proven it will never submit to the demands of the other side. Iran has proven in practice that its red lines and the interests and welfare of the Iranian nation, that its red lines are the interests and welfare of the Iranian nation, and there will be absolutely no compromise in this regard. He added that if the Islamic Republic intended to retreat under pressure, it would have done so a year and a half ago. The diplomatic process continues to be disrupted by repeated acts of U.S. military aggression. Both the U.S. and the Israeli regime have repeatedly violated the declared April ceasefire. In Wednesday attacks, American forces targeted Iran's southern infrastructure and struck 2 water reserves in Syria County, disrupting drinking water supplies to more than 20,000 residents across the Hormozgan province in southern Iran. So anyway, there's some, official, publications from Mer News of where Iran is standing, or where the IRGC is standing in terms of these negotiations. To me, it sounds like they are, according to the textual agreements of what America is posturing, or what America has signed on to on paper, it sounds like they are they believe that they actually are in agreement, but obviously they also don't think that America is trustworthy, and that Donald Trump goes out and contradicts what he's signed on to in principle all the time. So there's a little bit of context from the Iranian side.
I assume what he's talking about when he talks about their weak and pathetic statement on the deal is the fact that we had heard that the response to the deal, or the response to President Trump, was that the text still requires review and finalization. They have been saying that it has not been signed off on. President Trump, of course, saying that everybody was in agreement. So that is what is happening now. And again, we've been down this path before. President Trump says a deal is imminent, and then we see a situation like this where one of the sides starts to backpedal and it all falls through. So we'll see what's going to happen now. U.S. officials are still cautiously optimistic.
We shall see. All right, Kristen Holmes over at the White House for us. Thank you very much, Pamela.
All right.
Well, at least even the media now is saying it's a it's probably a crock of bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Originally, people took it seriously, like took what the president said seriously. And in some regard, they kind of still do. And it's another reason that they lose a lot of their credibility all the time by continuously trying to take the most unserious, non-credible person, try to put their words out there as if it's actually like meaningful or means anything. The media really needs to, like, if they want to be accurate and not lose all of their credibility, they really need to caveat stuff. And like they're kind of starting to do now by saying Trump has routinely said this. It has routinely turned out to be false. The war has continued even after he said there was going to be a deal. Like, he is an incredibly untrustworthy person when it comes to his posturing on these things. So we should take everything he says with a grain of salt. Like, they need to make those caveats if they want to, continue to be credible as like news sources. They tend to not do that, though, just because I think they have this reflexive instinct towards trusting, the institutions and the powerful.
Let's continue this conversation with CNN political and global affairs analyst Barack Ravid. He's also the global affairs correspondent for Axios. What do you make of this development with President Trump going from they've reached a great settlement to now saying Iran needs to get its act together because of what the state media there is reporting, which is different from what the U.S. has said?
Yes, I think what the U.S. has been told by the Qatari mediators and the Pakistani mediators and the Iranian negotiators themselves yesterday was that they're basically ready to sign. That was the message that the White House got. And preparation started for...
Well, of course they'd be ready to sign if America agrees to all of their demands, because they've had the same demands throughout this entire process for the last however many weeks since the ceasefire began. Iran has had the exact same demands, and it's what we just went over. And in some regards, I think they may have expanded on their demands since the ceasefire started as well. So, like, the only thing that could have possibly changed, in my opinion, is that America, at least behind the scenes, is starting to agree to some of those demands in the same way that eventually America, agreed to the memorandum of understanding, which obviously, as a framework for the deal, was a admission of defeat. It already was. As soon as America agreed to that, it was an admission of defeat. It was an admission that full-scale military conflict against Iran doesn't work. So, the only thing, in my opinion, that could have changed is, at least behind the scenes, that America is like trying to capitulate to some of these demands in some regard, that is allowing Iran to say that, okay, we might be a little bit closer. But again, Trump always comes out and like contradicts that anyway. So who knows?
A possible signing ceremony during the weekend. For example, 4 U.S. Air Force C-17 planes left Washington yesterday to Europe as an advance for possible trip by Vice President Vance to Geneva to sign this agreement with the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Muhammad Bakr Kalibaf. But I think what happened in the recent hours is what happened several times during those negotiations, that every time when the parties were close to a deal, each side wanted to market the deal to its own domestic audience. And when you do that, then each side obviously gives the deal its own.
I mean, to an extent, yes. They are both, like, I guess, marketing it, but America is doing like 100 times more marketing because America has to admit that it lost in order to get out of this. And Iran has been, like I said, asking for the exact same thing over and over again. And I don't see what could have possibly changed them from continuing to ask for the same thing over and over again this time. If they were, if this is what they were expecting, back directly after America was expending all of its military resources, all, 50% of its missiles in in 6 weeks or whatever. And this is what they were expecting, given how confident they were at that point during the full scale hot war. None of these like individual strike actions are going to in any way change anything. Like strategically from their position. So I don't see why they would back off of any of these whatsoever at this current point in time. Also, the blockade is minuscule in terms of its effect on Iran compared to its effect on the rest of the world. So
spin emphasizes the things that it's going to get and downplays the things that it's going to give. And I think that's again what happened today when the Iranian presented their narrative or their spin on what has been agreed, and President Trump pushed back and presented him and White House officials presented their narrative about what has been agreed. And I think it's not totally different, but I think each side just emphasizes what it is getting from a deal and not really talking about what it is giving in this deal.
Because Barack, when I woke up this morning and saw everything that was happening overnight, it looked like there was going to be a deal that included a 60-day ceasefire, including other stops, including a ceasefire involving Israeli strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon as well. But now it looks like this whole thing potentially could collapse. Do you think potentially, God forbid, that the region now, the U.S., Israel, and Iran, are on the verge of an all-out war?
I'm not sure, because I think even though President Trump ordered new strikes in recent days,
well, I'll hear what he has to say
were
first.
Still below the threshold of an all-out war. I'm not saying it can't happen. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu definitely wants this war to resume because he doesn't believe the Iranians.
Okay, here's the reason that it's not returning back to all-out war. It is because there are physical, material constraints on what America is capable of doing. And also, I guess, America is maybe realizing that they were unable to impact Iran politically in any way, shape, or form, even when throwing everything they had at them, right? Iran weathered the storm perfectly fine. They were perfectly capable to continue being in a hot war indefinitely, right? And America went through 50% of its missiles during that time period. I believe that they are straight up at the physical constraints of what America is able to do, and that if they start using more of their missiles, right, then they will not have enough missiles for other future conflicts that they are that they are preparing for, right? They're preparing for conflict with Cuba. They're preparing for conflict with potentially Greenland. They're preparing for conflict with China, and so they don't want to use all of them. They went through 50% in 6 weeks of war. And then also, if they started up a hot war again, the missile interceptor situation would also be a limiting factor, in that they would continue to deplete all of those for any potential future conflicts as well. So I think they're just straight up at they just straight up realize that they are materially unable to go back into an air campaign like that, or they believe that maybe they need to save those missiles for the off chance that they have to go into a full ground occupation, which would need air support, interceptors, missile strikes, all of that stuff. And they're saving that just in case they need to go do that. I don't think that Trump really wants to commit to ground troops. And I also don't think the American people are politically would politically be wanting to do that as well. But I also wanted to show you guys, I don't need this one anymore. One second. Okay. Here's some this is from DropSite. Here's some analysis of some of the strikes that happened, I think, in retaliation for America's strikes after the that helicopter, the people flying the helicopter, they valiantly flew it directly into a drone. Why'd you hit my drone with your helicopter, dude? That's one thing that I don't know if I buy that story. I don't know if I buy the story of that helicopter. But anyway, this is Dropside. It says newly analyzed satellite imagery indicates recent Iranian strikes on Bahrain's Sheikh Issa Air Base, which hosts, so this is Bahrain, which hosts U.S. forces, may have destroyed fuel bladders inside the facility and damaged a warehouse or hangar. Open source intelligence account Egypt's Intel Observer says the account also showed imagery captured yesterday that showed damage to a radar site at another site in Bahrain. So here's some pictures. This is, I assume, the before, and this is the after. You can see some direct hits on various military targets. Iran clearly still has the capability and will to strike American bases, American assets in the region. They also had established a new, I think, doctrine when it comes to escalations, where before they were generally rising with America, like during the actual hot war, whatever America targeted, they would end up targeting at a similar level. Thanks for the sub, J12 step. I appreciate it. But yeah, originally they were kind of escalating tit for tat with America during the hot war. But I think their new doctrine was whatever America, like however many targets America hit, they were going to like escalate further beyond that. And I think that they were hitting like twice, generally speaking, twice as many targets as America would hit on any of their strikes. So that's why they shot so many. I think they shot like 24 targets or something or shot at 24 targets on their last strike. And I think America hit like 12 or so. So I think they have a new doctrine now in terms of their escalation as well. But also I wanted to show you guys this because our military industrial complex, or like CENTCOM and stuff, came out and said that nothing hit anything, that all of those strikes were completely intercepted. And I clock that as bullshit, probably bullshit, considering Iran's historical precedent during this war of being able to hit stuff. So anyway, there's some information on that as well. So I'm sure that's also in some regard constraining America from going back into a hot war as well, is that Iran seems very capable and seems to be escalating even faster than they were during the actual hot war before.
And he thinks that the regime needs to be weakened even more. But I think that at least at the moment, even though Trump just, posted this very angry response to the Iranians, my sense from talking to people that are involved in the negotiations on the U.S. side is that they still want to see if they can get to sign this agreement over the weekend. I still hear the same thing from the different mediators. So it might all collapse. We might seeing that at the moment how this thing is collapsing, but it might be, one of those hiccups that you have before you get to a deal.
Yeah, yesterday, President Trump was threatening to launch U.S. troops to take over Iran's critically important Karg Island.
Oh.
That sounds like that would be a major escalation.
And that was always bullshit. I don't think America is going to do it. I thought back at the very beginning of the war, I thought the trajectory of escalation would lead to some sort of ground invasion by America. And honestly, I think that if it was a president other than Donald Trump, it might have. I do think that, like, generally speaking, the blob thing, right? If you just took if you embodied the deep state into a president, just put them in office, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, whoever, right? If you put the embodiment of the deep state in office and they were president, I think the average, just general, American, like foreign policy consensus blob would have just slowly walked into a ground occupation of Iran, like an incredibly costly one, similar to Iraq. But I do think that Trump has a particular fear of putting boots on the ground. And it's obvious, like, I think it's because he has railed on George W. Bush so much for the Iraq war that he doesn't want to, make the same mistake. And so I think that's kind of where, like, my assessment at the beginning was a little bit wrong. And I think that I'm now in the point, like, I'm now at the point where I don't think that he is truly going to end up putting boots on the ground in any capacity. And maybe he will, maybe he'll surprise me, but I do think that he has a genuine fear of doing that. And then obviously, like, there's no guarantee that would in any way be successful, because if you're going to this island and you're just sitting there trying to hold it for, I don't know, for the, I guess, strategic goal of stopping Iran from shipping oil, you're just a sitting duck. You're like a lot like all of these bases that I just showed you in Bahrain and stuff. A lot of the troops and stuff at these bases are just sitting ducks, ready to be attacked. So like, you're just going to be eating missiles 24/7. You also have to, supply that, which the strait won't be open. So you're going to have to create some sort of air supply. Like, logistically, it would be terrible. Like, it would just be terrible. There would be, for even just getting the island or whatever, there would probably be dozens, if not hundreds of deaths. And depending on how, how long we tried to hold it, there would just be a steady stream of deaths for that entire period of time. So I genuinely don't think that America is planning on doing that, like right now, at least. Maybe if they get too backed into a corner, or feel too backed into a corner, if Trump does, maybe he will. But like I said, he's unique. He's unique in some regards when it comes to being a president and doing things that the foreign policy blob would traditionally not do. Another example of him doing that is when he, just tucked tail and ran from the Houthis. He said, it's not working. The strikes on Yemen aren't working. We've lost a few F-35s or whatever it was. And it's not really accomplishing anything. We're not opening the Red Sea, so we're just going to tuck tail and run. Like, he didn't say that, but like but that's why he did it. And yeah, so he does things that are sometimes oppositional to the general deep state foreign policy consensus. So that's why that's what I'm kind of leaning towards now as well.
In this war, right there, and a source is telling CNN, by the way, Barack, that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't aware of an agreement with Iran. And that remarkably, he learned of it only from social media. What does that say to you about the Trump-Netanyahu alliance?
Nothing.
At least right now.
Says nothing.
So first about Carg Island, I have to say, I find it, at least at the moment, things change all the time and very quickly. I do not sense that there's either an appetite or a real operational plan, imminent operational plan, to do anything on Carg Island. I have no information that shows that this is where Trump really wants.
Yeah, we also saw what happened when America did try to do a ground operation, and when they tried to save that helicopter pilot or whatever, or the guy who got stranded, alleged person who was stranded out there, who we still don't know the name of, and we have not seen his face. He has not been thrown on TV. He has disappeared into the void. Nobody knows who he is or anything. But they tried to, save that guy. And what ended up happening is they were surrounded by Iran, like firing on them constantly. And they ended up not being able to secure that location. And they had to flee and destroy all of my tax dollars. They had to destroy all of my tax dollars that were there. So they already kind of tried a ground operation in some regard, and it failed. And also, kind of on that note, I wanted to read this real quick. I saw it. This is from today. U.S. military making plans to secure Iran's nuclear materials if deal is reached, sources say. So the if deal is reached, I assume that means like this isn't a military operation. But anyway, I kind of wanted to read this while we're on the subject. Of like a potential ground operation, like would they do this? I forgot what this one. Oh, actually, no, this was the one I wanted to read, or at least a portion of it. Okay, sorry, this is what I meant. Exclusive. U.S. military rushed to prepare ground mission to capture Iran's uranium, but Trump paused it, sources say. I won't read this whole thing because it's pretty long. But really, I want to read this section at the end, and I'll start with the beginning as well. The U.S. top general made a secret rush visit to U.S. CENTCOM headquarters in Florida late last month to be briefed in person on plans for the U.S. military to send ground troops into Iran to forcibly seize its highly enriched uranium, the key component necessary to produce a nuclear weapon, two sources familiar with the matter told CNN. The briefings were so urgent and sensitive that they required General Dan Kane, I assume that's Raising Cane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to rush from a meeting of senior NATO officials in Brussels back across the Atlantic to Tampa, Florida on May 19th, the sources said. The high level and pressing nature of the briefings underscore how close the administration came to greenlighting the high-risk ground operation, sources said. A Joint Staff spokesperson declined to comment about the preparations for a potential operation. Kane then briefed President Donald Trump on the options for such an operation, one of the sources said, but Trump hit pause after being warned it would likely prompt severe Iran retaliation, extending the war and plunging the global economy into further turmoil, the sources said. Trump has also voiced concern about the potential for a significant number of U.S. casualties, according to sources familiar with the matter. What did I just say? I promise you, I did not read this ahead of time. But this is just the obvious conclusion to anybody who uses their brain and does not just buy American propaganda on its face. Use your brain. I always tell people, use your brain. Like, think about this from a real perspective of what it would be like to be in Iran's shoes, what they would want, how they would interact, how they would respond to things. Like, you need to you need to always try to break out of Orientalist framing of American propaganda. The advanced planning for the operation came amid repeated statements by Trump that the U.S. and Iran were approaching an agreement to open the Strait of Hormuz and conclude negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. On Thursday, Trump said the U.S. and Iran would soon be signing a deal, but the discussions around sending ground troops into Iran just last month show how close the U.S. has come to a massive escalation of the conflict. Lots of risk, one of the sources familiar with the plans for the potential military operation said, adding it was not surprising Trump opted against giving the military the green light last month. And for the exact same reason, they're not going to do this Karg Island thing, or whatever island they're claiming now. They're not going to do that for this exact same reason. Tehran has also been planning an economic nuclear option if negotiations with the U.S. fail and the war resumes. Three people familiar with the matter told CNN, getting the Houthis, the Iranian chief proxy force in Yemen, to close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. By the way, they have kind of done that to Israeli vessels only so far, is what they've said. But they haven't enforced it as far as I'm aware. They have not actually shot at any ships, which is the key indicator, I think, to shipping companies of whether it is too dangerous to go through. So they have said that, but I think shipping through that is still generally intact. A key waterway and global trade choke point that has served as shipping lifeline as the entrance to the Red Sea amid Iran's months-long closure of the Strait of Hormuz. A senior administration official responded to a request for comment. Blah, 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 blah. We don't need to read about Iran's uranium. Most people, I think, understand what uranium is and how it's used for a nuclear weapon and how Iran stores it. But let's go ahead and read this last section. If a ground operation to capture the uranium were launched, the risk of economic damage from closing of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, one of the outcomes intelligence assessments have warned about, could be catastrophic to the world economy. One source familiar with recent U.S. intelligence assessments told CNN, and it is notable that the Houthis have not resumed large-scale attacks against U.S. or other European vessels, but have said that any Israeli-flagged or owned ships are fair game. Expanding the scope of potential targets beyond Israeli vessels would represent a serious escalation, the source noted. And obviously, Iran wants to hold these cards as long as possible. I would argue that it would actually be a potentially bad sign to see them enact this, actually enact this blockade, because it would mean that they would feel like they need to escalate to this level, and that would mean potentially that they are under, more pressure than it seems like they are. So if they had done this immediately and blocked it off entirely, I would have been like, I don't know if that's, necessarily a good sign, because it could be an indicator then that the blockade is actually doing more economic damage than I personally think that it is. So, I would have to reassess my positions if they ended up doing that. But it seems like they're holding off on that until America decides to do something, that really egregious. Same with hitting the desalination plants. I thought maybe they might do it when America hit Iran's water supply for that particular recent war crime, like a couple days ago. But they did not. And again, I think that's a indicator more of feeling pretty confident that they don't even need to play some of these cards yet. The Iranians have only held back so far from enlisting the Houthis to take that step, the sources said, because they know it could derail ongoing peace talks. But it remains a card Iran could play if the pursuit of a deal falls apart and the U.S. resumes full combat operations. If the U.S. is even capable of resuming full combat operations, given how much it has deteriorated its missile and interceptor supply. Something Trump has been wary to do. I added that in between part, by the way. That was not in the article. They would never characterize things the way that, I do, as someone who, doesn't have to try to make things sound good from an American empire perspective. I don't really give a shit if America looks bad, so that's why I'm allowed to say, characterize things in a way that they typically would not. Iran's standing army has been significantly weakened, so the biggest risk to U.S. troops should Trump order an operation to extract the uranium would likely be booby-trapped tunnels where the material is stored, as well as surface-to-air and shoulder-fired missiles, the source said. Iran also retains a significant percentage of its drone and ballistic missile stockpile, CNN has reported. That is I think that's complete bullshit. Iran's standing army has been significantly weakened. We haven't even seen their standing army engage in clashes yet. And Iran is prepared. I think that Iran, generally speaking, had two layers of preparation, right? They prepared for an air campaign first and foremost, by building all of their missiles, all of their factories, for manufacturing missiles, all of their critical infrastructure that they would need in an asymmetric conflict, long-term conflict, for an air campaign to be protected from missiles being dropped from the air. That was step number one. But I do think that they have plans for their army if there is a ground invasion, because I think they were also expecting that, the same way that I was expecting that. And I think that if there was a different president than Donald Trump, that would have potentially already happened. So I think they are very much prepared for that. And in fact, most of the people that I've seen representing Iran are saying they want America to do that, because then they can inflict incredible amounts of pain using standard guerrilla tactics, luring in American soldiers into easily hittable areas and then ambushing them. It would be incredibly easy, especially on their own terrain, which is an incredibly harsh terrain, by the way. Would be very difficult for American service members and troops to be able to move accurately and without knowing them. There's no way they're going to know where all of the tunnels are, right? There's no way they're going to know where the ambush points are. Iran would have obviously that home field advantage. Which is one of the reasons why we shouldn't go into foreign wars ever, for no reason, for any reason. We should never do it. It's stupid. It's stupid, stupid, stupid. Kane and other military leaders have previously raised concerns about the scale, complexity, and potential for U.S. casualties that could result from an extended military operation against Iran. He and others inside the Pentagon also warned prior to the U.S. launching its war on Iran that a protracted military campaign would significantly impact U.S. weapons stockpiles and military readiness. Despite Trump's past comments about taking the uranium, he was dismissive of the option on Thursday in comments from the Oval Office. Nobody's going close to it because it's buried under a mountain. Trump said. So there you go. In terms of like the actual feasibility of doing any sort of ground operation, even Donald Trump thinks that it's bullshit. So okay, let's keep going on this. We'll finish up this video and maybe I'll read one more article if I feel like it.
And it is true that Netanyahu learned about Trump's post yesterday announcing that there's a deal from social media when he was sitting with his security chief and one of his advisors came into the room and told them that while they were discussing about what are the potential U.S. strikes that were going to happen several hours later, all of a sudden one of his advisors came in and said, well, there are no strikes. There's actually a deal, according to what President Trump just posted. And the U.S. did not notify Netanyahu in advance of this post. And I think that in the phone call, from what I heard from U.S. officials about a phone call Netanyahu and Trump had several hours later, Netanyahu was very, he sort of told the president that, you know, he understands that there is a deal and there's nothing he could do. I'm sure that if Prime Minister Netanyahu read President Trump's post from a few minutes ago, his mood improved significantly.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, Israel is obviously the wild card here. And so, okay, here's what's going to happen. In my personal opinion, what I think is going to happen is America is going to, you know, nominally sign on to what Iran wants. Trump may have already done so behind the scenes or whatever. Iran will then, you know, begin the process of and maybe this is what they're already doing. We'll begin the process of accepting those on their side as well. As this gets closer to fruition, there's going to be more and more leaks like this coming out, and all of the neocons, all of the hawks, all of the Zionists, and all of the Israelis are going to get up in arms, and they will begin attacking Trump as much as they possibly can. And also, honestly, a lot of the liberals and Democrats like Chuck Schumer and stuff are probably going to do so as well. They're going to go out there and they're going to say this is a stupid deal. This is worse than the JCPOA. Trump is an idiot. He shouldn't take it. He should keep bombing Iran. At which point, Trump may, historically, what Trump has done after that point is he has torn up the deal and re-entered some sort of like limited strikes or doubled down on the blockade or, you know, whatever. But basically just like stalling the deal, the ceasefire out even further with no progress, like basically going back to square one. This is how it has historically gone. I'm not going to say that it's like that it's a 100% going to go that way again, but I will say that there is a high likelihood that that is the direction is going to go again. But obviously America has to agree to this to Iran's positions at some point, or America can't operate in this capacity forever. Eventually America has to go home, as I always say. So and the key, I think, the final nail in the coffin will be once the oil market really starts to collapse. Like once the prices spike due to all of the countries around the world running out of like reserves and stockpiles, and demand finally having to take over and actually impact the price of Brent crude, where they can no longer just live in a fantasy world that the conflict is going to end tomorrow and everything's going to be fine. Eventually, they will have to come to reality, at which point you'll get, the rolling blackouts in Europe, like in East Asia. You'll get, America might be fine in terms of supply. However, you will get, $7 gas at the pump, like all types of things will start happening once that happens. So at that point, the actual full geopolitical pressure starts to ramp up on Trump, and he will, be forced at some point to agree to these demands. So I still think this is going to keep going personally for probably, like I've been saying, another couple months. My original prediction was around the midterms is when it would stop. So we'll see how close I am in terms of timing. Predictions are always a fool's errand anyway. So I just do them more for fun. I don't think people should take them that seriously when I do that. So anyway, let's see. Do I want to... I do kind of want to read this last article real quick. It's real short, kind of related to Iran. So the U.S. military making plans to secure Iran's nuclear materials if deal reached, sources say. Now, this is from CBS, ZBS, Zionist Broadcasting Service, Barry Weiss's own. So take this with a grain of salt. This is probably going to be leaked directly from CENTCOM. This is probably going to be what they're saying, and I would definitely take everything in here with a grain of salt, but let's go ahead and read it. Washington, amid volatile diplomacy and tit-for-tat strikes between the United States and Iran, American military planners have discussed contingencies that would involve U.S. forces helping secure Iran's nuclear materials if a deal is reached, according to U.S. officials familiar with knowledge of the ongoing planning. The discussions, which remain preliminary and are contingent on a range of battlefield and political developments, center on how the Pentagon could support the Department of Energy in seizing Iran's highly enriched uranium. The officials told CBS News, speaking on condition of anonymity, to discuss national security issues. 100%. This was leaked by like Hegseth or something, right? This is a leak. This is just a leak from the State Department of hypothetical plans that are never going to happen. We already talked about why this is never going to happen. Under one scenario reviewed by defensive, and also apparently Trump already declined to do this earlier on. Under one scenario reviewed by defense officials, U.S. troops would be deployed to several countries across the Middle East to support a rapid response operation. Specialized teams from the Department of Energy working alongside military personnel and other U.S. government agencies could then enter Iran to locate, secure, and remove stockpiles of enriched uranium, the official said. They would all die. Probably they would all die. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I just think, just judging by what happened when when they were trying to find that totally real person out in the woods in Iran, I think that they would be under heavy fire the entire time. Before an American F-15E Strike Eagle was shot down back in April, triggering a major combat search, that's what I was talking about, search and rescue effort, Pentagon officials had examined a similar concept involving the Department of Energy's Nuclear Emergency Support Team, known as NEST. According to the officials, the proposal also envisioned participation from U.S. Spec Ops forces and the Army's 20th Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear Explosives Command, which specializes in countering weapons of mass destruction and hazardous materials. The officials told CBS News that the discussions do not represent a decision to conduct an operation, rather they are part of a routine military contingency plan. A senior administration official told reporters on a call Friday that under the terms of the deal, which could be signed in the coming days, Iran's enriched uranium would be destroyed on site and then taken out of the country. There will be a technical process to figure that out. The official said, so on a call Friday that a senior administration official told reporters on a call Friday that under the terms of a deal, which could be signed in the coming days, Iran's enriched uranium would be destroyed on site and then taken out of the country. There will be a technical process to figure it out, the official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. Technical negotiations are slated to last 60 days after MOU is signed, the official said. There's no way that's happening. There's literally no way that is happening. Not at the beginning of the deal. Maybe, after the 60-day threshold, they are supposed to begin negotiating on the nuclear issue, which will, I think, end up with Iran blending down back to JCPOA levels of enriched uranium. However, they are never going to allow it to leave the country. There is no chance in hell that is going to happen under any circumstance. So, okay, well, there we go. That's the current Iran situation. I'm going to close the tab group, and we're going to be done with it.